Good morning, students. I am Andreas Varghese, lecturer of Emmanuel Arasa College of Pharmacy. Today we are going to discuss about documentation of clinical pharmacy services. What do you mean by documentation of clinical pharmacy services? Definition: documentation of clinical pharmacy services is a standardized process of recording patient specific information, clinical interventions or incidents, provisional action, as well as workload, statistics, quality improvement activities, and key performance indicators. These informations may be collected and recorded manually or via an electronic medication management system. Documenting activities is an external element for providing clinical pharmacy services. This is for the definition. Then next we discuss about objectives. Objectives of documenting clinical services, clinical pharmacy services. Then first one, the primary reasons for documenting clinical activities is to improve each patient's the quality of life. Second, documenting clinical activities is the patient's permanent health record is way of communicating with other health professionals to support the continuity of care for the patients. Documentation demonstrated the accountability of the pharmacist and the evidence of impact of the pharmacist services. The continuous and the periodic documenting of workload statistics and key performance inference aims to assess efficiency and quality of pharmacy services professionals and may assist in the statistics planning. The next we are discuss policy and procedure. How information is documented will be dependent on local policy and will be infused by the nature of the information and to whom the information is intended for. This is applicable to all forms of documentation, both manual and electronic. Patient specific information may be documented on the NIMC and associated medication chart, on the MMP or equivalent directly in patient health record. Then first one, inpatient medications and administration order. Then what do you mean by inpatient medications and administration order? The NIMC is intended to ensure best practice and assistance in improving the steps in the medication management cycle through safer prescribing, dispensing, and administration of medicines and minimizing the risk of adverse medication events. Pharmacists should be familiar with the NIMC user guide. Any annotations by the pharmacist should be easily identified as beginning desistance from the prescriber. Organizing policy may allow of the use of colored ink which could be easily visible when charted or photocopied, faxed or scanned. If an annotation is made, the pharmacist's signature, designations and contact details should be clearly identifiable in that page. Check the adverse drug reactions have been annotated appropriately on the chart. Ensure that the adverse drug reaction sticker is also on the chart if ADR listed. If patient is not aware of the previous adverse drug reactions, then the nil non box should be ticked and the person documenting must sign print their name and data. The pharmacist should sing the pharmaceutical review sessions at the bottom of the NIMC to indicate the appropriateness of the all medicines ordered for that patient's example doses and drug interactions. The medication history documentation selections may be completed by the admitting medical officer, nurse, pharmacist, or other clinicians trained in a medical history documentations. The NIMC provides space for minimum information to be documented on a admission. Second, medication management plan MMP. MMP means medication management plan. It is external that information resulting to the management of a patient medicines is documented in a routine manner that enable all healthcare team members, medical, nursing, pharmacists to have timely and full access to assistance in decisions making. This information should be documented in standardized format that forms the part of the patient record. This information may be documented either in a paper based or electronic format. Decisions regarding the use and format of MMP medication management plan will depend on the organizations. The medication management plan should be kept with the active medication chart throughout the patient's admissions. It should be able to and used by other health professionals and the patients when the possible. After discharge, it should be filed with the patient's permanent health record. Then specific information documented of medication management plan or other reported includes history of presenting complaints and reason for current admission, assessment of the patient's clinical problems, pain for the management of the patient's clinical problems and therapeutic goals, past and current medical and surgical problems, details of allergies and ADR including data and description of reactions and re-exposures to the drug, revalent laboratory parameters, list of medicines at the time of admissions and past history. The last one, patient health records. What do you mean by patient health records? In the information document in the health record is independent to form a permanent record. When making an entry in the health record, identify data and time, then follow a logical sequence. Example, SOP method. Subject, relevant patient details, objective, clinical finding, then assessment of clinical finding and a proposed management plan. Use only well organized applications. Document this directly for clinical review and monitoring. Sign the entry, print name and designations and provide contact details. Documenting the following details or activities relating the medicines, related problems and potential actions in the patient's health record. Information obtained from an accurate medication history included an assessment of patient adherence with the prescribed medicines reached, identification of uh, identification of serious clinical problems in consult with the pharmacist assessment. Details of patients' education and administrations and adherence aids provided. Provisions of patient-specific medication informations and specific therapeutic informations, example, potential drug interactions. Recommendations for therapeutic drug monitoring and evaluations of uh, time data management data and advanced drug reactions assessment and management recommendations, response to patient specific questions from other staff. The next we are discuss about organization specific form. Organization may choose to develop their own standardized forms for recording patient specific information. It is important that patient specific information is accessible to all members of all the healthcare team during the patient's admissions and filled in the health record at discharge. Clinical interventions or addressed medication related problems. Previous versions of the standard have defined pharmacist interventions as any actions that directly result in a change in patient management of therapy. Then clinical interventions is defined as the process of a pharmacist identifying and making a recommendations in an attempt to prevent or resolve drug related problems. Department should have a formalized policy on documenting pharmacist and interventions. Following information should be recorded: data and patient demographic data, treating unit or provider, pharmacist identifier, category of drug related problems, data and patient demographic data, treating unit or provider, pharmacist identifier, category of drug related problems. Then category of pharmacist interventions, category of action take in response to the drug related problems. Department should have a formulary policy document pharmacist interventions. Following informations, and first one, data and patient demographics data, treating unit or provider, pharmacist identifier, category of drug related problems. Then category of pharmacist interventions, category of action taken response to the drug related problems. Then clinical pharmacist innovations form, pharmacist date and serial numbers. Drug related problems, DRPS. Then drug related problems, no indication for the drug therapy, no drug order for medical conditions, inappropriate drug selections, inappropriate dosage arrangement, dose frequency, route, rate, prescribed drug not administered, aspirin ADR, then aspirin drug interactions, drug interaction, drug food interaction, drug lab test interactions. Then second one, type of intervention, pharmacokinetics, pharmacotherapeutics, drug informations and resonance. Then clinical significance, potentially services, highly clinical significance. Then second one, important, seriousness, moderately clinically significance. Third for minor, low clinical significance. Then expected outcome, cost savings only, potential adverse drug reactions, toxicity prevented, enhanced therapeutic effect. Then acceptance, A for acceptance, MA for modified the attendance, accepted, R for rejected. NB means MA or R specific. What was the reason? Was it the response? In form of the clinical pharmacist interventions forms. Pharmacist, date, serial number. Drug related problems, type of interventions, clinical significance, expected outcomes, and acceptance. That is the form. ഒരു clinical pharmacist interventions forms. Clinical interventions forms. Then reference. Then thank you.